Search the Scriptures. We're on study number 15 in 2 Samuel, and this covers one chapter, 2 Samuel chapter number 21. And there are three different questions that we'll try to answer. The first one is this: why was Saul's attempt to exterminate the Gibeonites wrong? And how was David careful not to make the same mistake? And do we stand by our word? Secondly, there was a law that those who were hanged were to be buried the very same day. And what was the reason for that law, and how does it explain the exception that there is made in this case? And the third question: what significance is there in the fact that giants troubled David right to the very end of his life? So let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 21 together. During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years. So David sought the face of the Lord. And the Lord said, "It is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death." The king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel, but were survivors of the Amorites. The Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to annihilate them. And David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How shall I make atonement, so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance?" The Gibeonites answered him, "We have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death." "What do you want me to do for you?" David asked. And they answered the king, "As for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us, so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be given to us to be killed, and their bodies exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one." So the king said, "I will give them to you." And the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Ahai's daughter Rizpah, whom she had borne to Saul, together with the 5 sons of Saul's daughter Merab, whom she had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai the Mahalathite. And he handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed them and exposed their bodies on a hill before the Lord. All 7 of them fell together, and they were put to death during the first days of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning. And Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. And from the beginning of the harvest till the rain poured down from the heavens on the bodies, she did not let the birds touch them by day or the wild animals by night. And when David was told what Ahai's daughter Rizpah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the citizens of Jabesh Gilead. They had stolen their bodies from the public square at Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down on Gilboa. And David brought the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been killed and exposed were gathered up. And they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the tomb of Saul's father Kish at Zelah in Benjamin, and did everything the king commanded. And after that, God answered prayer on behalf of the land. And once again there was a battle between the Philistines and Israel. And David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels, and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue, and he struck the Philistine down and killed him. And then David's men swore to him, saying, "Never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished." In the course of time there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob. At that time Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Asaph, one of the descendants of Rapha. In another battle with the Philistines at Gob, Elihan, son of Jair the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath the Gittite, who had a spear with a shaft like a weaver's rod. In still another battle, which took place at Gath, there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He also was descended from Rapha. When he taunted Israel, Jonathan, son of Shemaiah, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were descendants of Rapha and Gath, and they fell at the hands of David and his men. First question: why was Saul's attempt to exterminate the Gibeonites wrong, and how was David careful not to make the same mistake? And do we stand by our word? Well, in Joshua chapter 9, it's crystal clear that Israel had made an oath to spare the people of Gibeon. This was a clear violation of the oath. that is said in Joshua chapter 9 that they had made before God. And David went to the Gibeonites, and he asked them what they thought was fair under the circumstances. Upon fulfilling their request to execute the 7 descendants of Saul, the rain began to return to the land, showing us that David truly was a man of his word. Second question, there was a law that those who were hanged were to be buried the very same day. What was the reason for the law, and how does it explain the exception that is made here? Well, in Deuteronomy it says the reason that those that were hung on a tree were supposed to be buried the same day, it was in order to prevent a curse from coming upon the land. Now in this case, it wasn't Israel that was carrying out the judgment. It was the Gibeonites that were carrying out the judgment. So perhaps this law didn't apply in this situation. Nonetheless, it did cause David to realize what he had done with Saul and Jonathan and their bones after he'd seen the concubine taking such a good care of the descendants of Saul after their bodies were left out. David was convicted to go back and get Saul and Jonathan. The third question, what significance is there in the fact that giants troubled David right to the end of his life? Well, there maybe are a couple different ways to look at this question concerning the giants. One is this: David never fully dealt with the issues in his life. He didn't pursue his enemies to the fullest extent. You can see that by all the different problems that existed in his life. Many times David failed to go all the way when it came to resolving personal issues and family issues. That may be what's going on here. There's also another way of looking at why there were still giants and why this passage is here. Maybe it's to show us the continual defeat of giants until the very end of David's life was a reminder that God still had the power to defeat the enemies in David's life, even though David was getting old, even though David no longer had the power within himself. The power of God never faltered in his life. Hope you're experiencing the power of God in your life. I hope this study's been a blessing to you, and may God richly bless the rest of your day.